Hi there, Steve Kaufman here. This is my studio, okay? So it's where I study in a way, although it's quite portable. Steve Kaufman talking about languages. If you like my video, give me a like, subscribe to my channel. I'm supposed to say those things, so I do. I usually forget. Today I'm going to talk about speaking like a native, sounding like a native, because it's a discussion that showed up on, it was sort of in response to my latest video, which I did in Japanese. But I just wanted to point out that this is where I study, so I have my computer here, two screens. Sometimes I study on link using the computer. Mostly, however, I use my iPad because it's more comfortable to sit down and I do my linking on my iPad. If I go down to the gym here, I take my audio with me on my iPod Touch. Oh, sorry. Of course, I use my AirPods. I'm not a paid agent for Apple. It's just that I've kind of grown used to their products. And I'm also experimenting with trying to improve the quality of my videos. So I had a microphone that attached to my iPhone, which I'm using to film this earlier. And there was some comment that the sound was not that great. So I'm now experimenting with a lapel mic. We'll see how that goes. At any rate, sounding like a native. So I did a video in Japanese, and there was some discussion, how well does Steve speak Japanese and so forth, and well, he speaks it okay, but you know, his pronunciation could be better, it doesn't sound like a native. And so the subject of sounding like a native. Obviously, when we study a language, we're trying to imitate, and the model that we try to imitate inevitably is the native speaker. We want to sound like a native speaker. It might be a native speaker from Scotland or Australia or from Brazil or Portugal or from Quebec or France, but we have a model which is the native speaker. And we imitate the pronunciation, we imitate the use of words, we might imitate some of the gestures, you know, if we're speaking Italian, certo, whatever, or if we're sumimasen, Japanese, sumimasen. Or in from so you get into the sort of imitating the gestures. We are imitating the culture of another language group. Similarly, I'm trying to improve my golf. If I see Tiger Woods on the television screen, I kind of try to watch how he swings because I would like to swing like Tiger Woods. However, the reality is that I can't think of anyone that I know that speaks a foreign language, that is a language that they learned, you know, after the age of whatever, 15, that sounds like a native. They can sound very close to a native. They might sound like a native for a short period of time, but something will give them away. And that's certainly true. Like the language that I speak the best after English is French. And if I speak French to someone, especially in short bursts, they might think, maybe not French, but maybe Belgian, or maybe Swiss, or maybe something different, or Canadian, or like something sounds a bit not quite like the way we speak, although it sounds very fluent. Similarly, you know, and my Japanese is not as good as my French, so I would even be less likely to speak like a native. And I don't aspire to speak like a native because the native uses his or her language. To me, that's art. You know, there's certain ways that you pause, and there's certain ways that you put words together. Things that the native does effortlessly and that the language learner can try to imitate will never totally achieve, in my opinion. No matter how much they focus on, like, I don't know, pitch in Japanese, which I don't understand, quite frankly, or any of these other things where they try to refine their pronunciation to that nth degree, to me it's not that useful a thing to do. I would rather acquire more words. For example, if I compare my Japanese to my French, in French I can read literature, I can listen to audiobooks where they can, you know, I can listen to Proust, I can listen to whatever, Balzac, whatever I used to listen to, and I understand it, I have all those words. In Japanese, I don't. My Japanese was built around my business discussions in Japan, and if I had the time to spend on improving my Japanese, I wouldn't focus on improving my pronunciation to try to achieve that elusive level of sounding like a native. I would work on improving my comprehension, accessing more material so that when I speak, I'm able to bring more words and to express myself more accurately. So imitate, so many other aspects of how the native uses the language rather than just the accent. So I think all I'm saying is we want to model ourselves on the native, and that's why, again, there's often a dispute about native speaking teachers versus non-native speaking teachers. Obviously, not every golf instructor is Tiger Woods. In fact, very few of them, none of them are. We can still have a golf instructor who's not native, Tiger Woods, and yet still consider Tiger Woods to be the model, or some other pro, your favorite pro, as a Canadian like Adam Hadwin. So similarly, if we're learning a language, we certainly want to avail ourselves of all of the native content that is out there. And if I'm having a discussion on italki, which I use a lot, with a tutor, I want a native speaker. I want to engage, I want to connect with that culture. If I'm speaking to an Iranian tutor, whether that person be in Tehran, or one of my Iranian tutors was located, I think, in Poland, or a Turkish tutor from Turkey, they embody the culture. That's the person I want to connect with. Now, in a classroom, it's simply not practical to always have native speaking teachers, and there's certainly lots that a non-native speaker teacher can provide in terms of help and guidance and encouragement. However, the model is the native speaker. However, we are not going to end up sounding like a native. I don't know, even like Luca, who I think is magnificent in the way he speaks. His French, his Spanish, his Italian, his Mandarin, his Swedish, his Russian, excellent pronunciation. And maybe there are people who think he sounds like a native. But in the only language that I'm able to judge, which is English, because that's the only language where I'm a native, he speaks phenomenally well, but he doesn't sound like a native. So I would suggest that people don't make sounding like a native, at least in terms of pronunciation, their goal. Try to have a pleasant pronunciation, a pleasant accent that reflects who you are, your native language, but that you respect the language by using words well. And let your pronunciation fall where it may. But if your pronunciation is so poor that people have trouble understanding you, or if you continue to rely on what you think say in English, the written, for example, in English, the writing system doesn't match the pronunciation. Even say in Russian, if the O sound isn't accentuated, it becomes A. Now, these are things that you should be able to notice. However, the sum total of all your pronunciation is still not going to sound like a native, in my opinion. So I think one should be realistic in that regard. Work on improving your use of words, your comprehension, your vocabulary. Pay attention to pronunciation, but be realistic that you are not going to sound like a native, at least not to a native. Bye for now.